We wear masks as people to shield ourselves from the others. Hi, my name is Nhlanhla Kunene. Welcome to my masterclass. Now, if boys don't cry. In this masterclass, you'll learn the responsibility of portraying a character with truth, understanding your character, multidimensionality of a character, understanding your truth, and fighting all these stereotypes around men. I've portrayed men for the longest time in my life. And the more I do it, the more I realize where they come from and what inspires them. It's very important to play an authentic character because you reflect reality and you become a mirror of someone's situation and reality. But particularly, understanding what drives and influences the choices they make within the world of the story. I grew up in Ladysmith and in Ivory Park. I studied at Wits, but I had to drop out because I couldn't finish my studies. But I'm a storyteller. I did a whole lot of theater shows, and that's where I understood what storytelling is. I've been in a couple of shows. I've been in Adulting the River, Lavish, Queendom, Obstruction, and that inspired me to tell stories truthfully. So Eric is a character I portrayed in Adulting. Eric is a typical township guy who studied but had to drop out because of funds. He had a child when he was still in high school, and that had pushed him to go and hustle. But because he grew up in the township and had no support structure, he had to push and hustle differently. This is what most guys in the township know. It's called panda. The responsibility that comes with portraying a complete character. Performance isn't just performance. It's healing. You reflect someone else's life. So your responsibility is to play every moment, every second of the character truthfully. Because if someone is watching and they've been in that situation and you're not playing it truthfully, you're not doing justice and you're not serving purpose to the script. It's important, and it is your responsibility as a performer to research, find these nuances, get into the psyche of the character, understand what drives them. Is he left-handed? Is he right-handed? What color does he like? How does he walk? How does he talk? What inspires him to stand up? What inspires him to wake up every morning? It might seem complex, it might seem too much, but you need all of these things because he's not just a one-dimensional character. He's someone that's gonna live throughout. Depends on how you then prepare for it. Do you call and summon the character? Sounds spooky, yes. But remember, acting is being. The only way for you to be is to be inside that moment. So it is your responsibility as a performer to research and find these characters. It's important to create a safe space when you're channeling the energy of a character. So lesi siqephu, it's called iqansi. NgokwesiZulu ngesintu, no one is above this because your forefathers and ancestors sit on top of this. I go through a process and channel my energy, and then summon the character.
Yonke la ngithunela yena. Ngihlala ngikudefenda wena ngikukhulumela. Namhlanje ukhuluma nami ngakho.
So I know of a man called Sipho. I grew up in the dusty streets of Ivory Park, and Sipho was my next door neighbor. See, we grew up without having any influential people to look up to. No nurses, no police officers. We only had Sipho and his friends. See, we only enjoyed spending time with them because They were the only role models we understood. They wore beautiful clothes, smelled, and had beautiful colognes, and drove VR6s and Golf 5s and 325 ISs at the time. What would make us sit and watch them play dice was most importantly what they would say. We'd all gather around as young boys and listen to them. And they'd talk about what a man is and how to conduct yourself in society as a man, what to do and what not to do. Dumsan was always late. He had a certain walk to him. Every time he'd walk up the street, he'd feel like the street belongs to him alone. And when he gets there and starts playing dice, he'd share his own stories of what they do at night. Our parents didn't really like it because they knew the kind of life they lived. Sipho had quite an interesting life. So Sipho's gate was a garage roller door. And this woman would always pass by, pick up a brick, and hit the roller door. And it would shackle. Sipho would come out running, angry and pissed. And they'd have an argument. The girl would often say this. Why are you cheating on me with all these different women? And Sipho would say, why do you not want me to see my daughter? Why would you cheat on me with all these different women? Why would you not want me to see my daughter? Who knew that a groot man like Sipho would be so vulnerable? Someone we thought had everything figured out. We would see him break layers and shed himself from frustration, anger, to sadness. I had an opportunity to perform a storyline that touched a lot of people. Eric really made me visit all these childhood memories and childhood traumas and go back to the township and say, actually, I always wanted people to look up to me, and being the voice of these guys I saw growing up, being the voice of Abu Sipho would play dice and teach us things that we weren't aware they were teaching us at that time. Multidimensionality of a character. Who knew that a groot man like Sipho, we all thought he had everything figured out, would be so vulnerable in one moment. We saw him shape shift. When he was with the gents, he was someone happy. And the stories they would tell about the things they would do in the streets were different. But when he was with this lady, we saw him shift. We saw his layers going down. We wear masks as people to shield ourselves from the others. It is then important to borrow from your truth, because what we see and what we hear informs what we think and inspires what we think about situations and how to approach them. Because then you're approaching a real situation from a real lived experience. With that being said, the multidimensionality of a character comes from that. Understanding that people are emotional beings, and allow your character to go through all these layers of emotion. Be sad, be happy, cry, and understand why. Why is the question. Why am I crying? Sipho was frustrated because his baby mama didn't want him to see his daughter. Now that you've researched and you applied and you know the truth, now it's important to then ask yourself, what is my role in this plot? What does the skeleton of the story require from me as a performer? Am I saying the character is wrong or right in the world of the story? Are his actions justified? Or I just want to be the voice of the character. I just want to speak on behalf of men within the society because society has crippled men. The only language we understand is alcohol and violence and dying from the inside. Your duty as a performer is to be the voice of the voiceless, is to speak their truth. It's important to approach characters with curiosity and caution. Go into his psyche. Go into his skeleton. Go into his brains to understand what informs his decision-making. Don't just look at him as an empty vessel. The only way to be able to breathe life into a character is knowing thyself. What ticks you, what makes you happy, what makes you sad, what makes you cry. When you understand your truth and approaching the character and interrogate the character's truth with curiosity. What makes him do this? What makes him laugh? What makes him do that? That then helps you in the world of the story, in any particular scene, to be able to find what will help your truth in the scene apply into the whole entire scene. Fighting stereotypes is important. When we get briefs on playing men, for instance, you're playing an abusive drunkard. Why am I playing an abusive drunkard? How do I approach him? What am I saying? Am I just performing him outwardly so? Or there's layers and subtexts I can go through all the time and be his voice and show people why am I so angry. Society has crippled men. The only art men understand is violence, alcohol, and sometimes dying from the inside. Now your duty as a performer is to tell their stories truthfully. By doing that, you need to research. Play the truth, play the source, not just the character. Play the source of my brokenness. Play the source of why am I an alcoholic. By then, you're breaking all these stereotypes that he's not just an angry man, but he's an angry, hurt, and broken man because of this and that and that and that. Obviously, you can't say it, but your performance, and we can see it through your eyes. I'd always wanted people to look up to me. And when someone would come up to me and applaud me for the character I played, I knew that someone was healed. For me, it wasn't really about the fame, the performances, or how big the show is. It was someone getting healed. And when that happened, I knew that I did justice to myself and the character, because playing him healed me first. Then it would heal another person. Storytelling is a mirror reflection of reality. And to escape, I tell stories. Sometimes people come up to me and say, I'm you. And I'd be puzzled. And they'd say, I'm Eric. I am the character you portray. And I'd ask how. Most would often share experiences of how or what inspired them to be gangsters. And we'd have a conversation, and it would always go down to the reason I'm like this is because of my background and my childhood. Amongst the industry, there's men also who've been in the same situation as Eric. And time and again, when these conversations come up we talk about how baby mamas don't allow them to have access to their kids. So performing and telling the truth of a character is important, because now you are then healing a person. I hope that me performing Eric inspires, or it has inspired men to be able to channel and challenge their emotions and still feel okay with that, because you're human. You have emotions. From the outward, we're strong, but we have emotions. I really hope, again, that Eric really gave people a clue that you can be yourself, regardless of what you're going through and regardless of how tough you are. You can cry. You can lean to someone for help. Now that you've watched the masterclass and you're excited to start on your journey, I'd suggest you go out there. Watch people closely, and you'll see that there's a whole lot of different gestures people offer. There's a whole lot of different emotions people portray. If you go in the township or in Joburg and you just study people's faces, you see someone passing by and you can tell their face has a lot of anger, a lot of sadness, a lot of happiness, a whole lot of emotions and a whole lot of different gestures from different people, a whole lot of walks, a whole lot of speech patterns. Study that closely, because after getting a brief of a character, researching that character, applying that character is different. Now, after studying and seeing all these people, you take that with what you rehearsed and researched, you put it together, and there you have an authentic character with depth.